Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse. Her bomb drop was August 1st of 2020 and her date of marriage is 2018. She says she's not yet familiar with what terms he is in, context type or energy level. She says, we had a false start. I was hopeful that he saw he was ruining our marriage. We didn't have arguments or anything, so at bomb drop I was lost. I guess there were signs that he was still involved with the alienator during that time, but I was praying to God to remove her when we were reconciling. So first, my assumption is your false start was after bomb drop, and there was a period, but I don't know at what point this false start was. How soon after bomb drop was the false start? Because false starts are very, very common quickly after bomb drop, a week, a month, 2 months. So it would be good to know what the time period, when was this false start, if your bomb drop was just a little over 2 years ago. He still lives with the alienator and I'm far away. So in other words, did he come home for this false start? What does false start mean? And then go back to her. Had he been living with her, leave her, and then come back? How did the false start work? He will text me every couple of weeks to ask how I'm doing, but then stop. He doesn't call. His actions show, and he says he doesn't want the marriage and I need to move on. We have no kids and he sees no point in trying because we don't have children. Why is he saying and acting this way, but yet without filing? It's confusing and I don't understand. I'm exhausted and so sad about this. Is he a low-energy wallower, an off and on, or a boomerang? So first thing, he's a boomerang. I can give you that much because he texts you every few weeks. If it were every 3 months you heard from him, I might say off and on. But just the fact that he maintains this communication with you, and you need to set up some boundary with that. You say, and this is going to be tough for you, but think of it as this. What do you have to lose if he hasn't, if he's clearly not turning towards you and coming back towards you? And remember, you're still at an early point in midlife crisis at only 2 years. I know that sounds terrible because it seems like forever. But it's time for you to tell him, you know what? Why are you calling me? You could ask him, why are you doing this and acting this way if you haven't filed for divorce? What gives? Now, I understand that you might not want to do that because you think, well, then he might file. So what I'm going to say about that is, aren't you being like divorced now anyway? And so what does that really change? You're thinking, oh, it changes the odds of reconciliation. I'll tell you what is damaging to the odds of reconciliation. Not having communication, not having contact. How do you reconcile if you don't ever communicate and have contact with each other? So that's what's damaging to reconciliation. No contact. There are times for a no contact boundary, but that's something else. But to not ever have communication with your spouse, I know that some of it, you may live in one of those marriages where people sit in the same household and aren't, but at least you see each other. There's still silent forms of communication. So not having any contact or communication is the most detrimental to reconciliation. It's just not going to happen. And all he's doing is texting you. That's great. I'm glad he's doing that much, especially that he's doing it to see how you're doing. He's showing that he cares somewhat. He's probably still in limerence with her, and a false start is completely normal. Or a false return, or he thought it was over, whatever. They have, and it's especially normal the earlier it is toward bomb drop. So he's saying and acting that way because he still wants an out. In other words, from the affair. He wants a backup plan. Sorry. And one of the things that people think is, I don't want to be somebody's backup plan because that makes me second choice. It's not really that way. They realize they made a mistake. And it's not that you're second choice because it didn't work out with that person. Second choice would be if that person rejected them. But sometimes it doesn't work out with that person because they realize, I just left the best thing for this. That doesn't make you second choice. It makes them having made a mistake. A big one. one that can ruin their life, because you might say, no, you don't get to come back after that sort of thing, or I can't trust you. And if he did come back right now, I wouldn't trust him, in the sense that I wouldn't trust that he's through his midlife crisis. Even if at the moment he says, I've come home, I mean everything, he's not lying sometimes. They don't realize the power of the limerence and the withdrawal they'll go through, the obsession, the addiction. They are still in a crisis, and there are pockets of where I want this, and they are absolutely authentic in wanting what they want. And they really don't think they'll change their mind. I mean, when you get married, do you think you're going to change your mind? So if you leave your wife, you're not doing it so that because I might change my mind. But MLCers say that all the time. So he wants you. He knows that you're his comfort zone. So it's not just that backup plan, but sorry, you're his security blanket right now. So you don't want to be that, and the distance is helping you with that. I can't tell you if he's a low-energy wallower or a high-energy replayer. My guess would be toward high-energy replayer, just on the basic assumption that he is with an alienator and he's not at home, because those are your odds. Off and on, I can see where you would say that, because his contact is not consistent. You say he does it for a few weeks, then he stops. But you say he must continue. He will text me every couple weeks. Sounds to me like he has bursts of texting over a few weeks, and then there's a longer period, and then bursts of texting, but I'm not sure. Okay. So here's what I think might help you. First thing, I want you working on your detachment, healing, mirror work. And then I want some boundaries in there, and I want you to figure out some truth darts. What can you do that can send some sort of arrow of truth to him? You know, what are you doing with your life here? You have left your wife. You're with somebody who you've already left once. You started an affair. You know that affairs don't work, right? You know, and I know you know this, whether you say that whether he knows it or not. Affairs are doomed. Relationships that start out as adultery, as when you're married, a relationship that starts with someone else is doomed. Oh, we're the exception. And they'll often say that, especially if they're in limerence. And you're not an exception. The people that think they're the exception, they're probably more doomed, actually, saying this to you, because they are thinking they're in limerence. If they are so insistent upon being soulmates, it's more a clue that there's the obsession and the addiction going on. So think of some truth darts that you can say in response to something if he texts. Do not initiate it. Send something if he responds to you. And it is okay occasionally to call him and say, "Hi, I got your message, checking in on me. I just thought I'd let you know I'm fine." And he won't answer probably. But that's fine. And she might be controlling all of this contact as well. So just when he contacts you, think of something you can respond back. And then maybe say, but you know what? You're contacting me, and why are you doing this? You left. You want to tell me you still care, then you get home, then you can come home. So contacting me to assuage your guilt isn't going to work. So either stop contacting me add this, until you're ready to be appropriate. I never like that word, but it's the only word I can ever think of, so I always use it. Or an appropriate spouse, or till you're ready to give up on your affair and be an adult again. Ooh, I like being an adult again for the, assumption of appropriate, assuming, and an analogy for appropriate. So try something like that. Do not, contact me. Don't say don't contact me without elaborating, or stop contacting me without elaborating, because that means there's not an out. You contact me when, or do not contact me until. It's an exit clause. And you might not be able to sound firm if it's in text, but find a way to put it in the text, or if you are going to do it by voice. If you're doing it by voice, don't do it by voice message. You need to have him on the other end. But you can do it. You might have to be doing it by text. Okay? I will try and remember to put a link to truth darts below this so that you can go read about what those are, and there are some truth dart type of samples in the article. Okay? I hope this was helpful, and I will see everybody in the next question.